Who knew roll cakes were so easy? Hi everyone, it's Tasha. Welcome to another recipe video. And today we're going to be making a black forest roll cake. I have made several roll cakes over the years, and one thing that's always a worry is if it's going to crack when you roll it up. But one consistent type of cake batter recipe that never seems to crack on me is the fatless sponge. And that's a sponge cake where you don't add any butter or oil to it and you whisk up the egg whites so it's really foamy. Though the name fatless sponge is a bit misleading, there is fat in it from the egg yolks, but that's the only fat content in it. And you end up with a really lovely, light, flexible mixture that has no problems rolling around doing what you want, and it doesn't crack at all. It's also important you keep this sponge moist as well, because if it dries out, it's going to crack. But the trick is in the way you cool down the sponge sheet. And the trick is covering it while it's still hot from the oven as it cools down. So whether that's covering it with the tray that it was actually baked in itself or with some damp kitchen towel. And that traps the steam and keeps the moisture in. So that's more or less how I do all of my roll cakes now. And today's one, we're going to flavour the sponge itself with some cocoa powder because we're going to make it Black Forest style. Because it's Black Forest style, I am going to make it a little bit boozy. Traditionally, Black Forest cake has a little kirsch in it. That's liqueur made out of cherry stones. But I will give you an alternative if you don't want the alcohol. So, are we ready to roll? Good, let's go to the kitchen and see how it's done. Let's start by making some naughty boozy cherries. Now, if you don't want alcohol, skip this step. But this is a Black Forest style cake, and Black Forest gâteau traditionally has a teeny tiny little bit of kirsch in it. That is a liqueur that's made out of cherry pits, I believe. But I haven't bought any kirsch because it's kind of expensive, so we're going to use some cheap brandy. But here I have a can of dark cherries in light syrup, and I've drained all of the syrup. If you don't want alcohol in this step, then don't drain the cherries and completely ignore this part. But if you do, then stick with us. So I've got one can of black cherries and light syrup, and we've gotten rid of the syrup, just the cherries. And I'm going to pour over 80 millilitres of cherry brandy. Now, we're not using kirsch because I'm not buying a whole bottle of kirsch just for this. Kirsch is a little bit pricey. And this, I actually made my own cherry brandy, as you can see here. I had a little container and I filled it full of pitted cherries, fresh cherries, and I added half a container's worth of caster sugar and then filled it all up with the cheapest brandy I could find. And it was actually kind of cheap. I used supermarket name brand brandy, and I left it for 3 months. Now, the reason why I'm not using my brandy soaked cherries in this is because, like I said, this is 3 months old. The cherries in here are lethal, or maybe not lethal, but they are potent, and we are making a cake, a nice dessert, not something you can get hammered on, so we only want lightly sozzled cherries. So let's put these bad boys away. So like I said, that was homemade cherry brandy. If you can't find or you don't want to make it, just use ordinary cheap brandy, that is fine. Right, so we added 80 milliliters of that. Now we're going to cover it with some cling film, and we're going to let this rest at room temperature overnight. Good night, cherries. It's the next day and it's time to bake, so let's preheat our oven to 180 degrees C. I've also prepared a 26 by 36 centimetre baking tin, and what I've done is I've lightly oiled it with some vegetable oil, and I've also lined the bottom with some reusable non-stick baking parchment, which I think is not really parchment, it's silicone, but you can use the disposable type. Now, for this recipe we're going to need to separate 4 eggs, so I've got 3 that I've already separated here. This is how I do it. Crack an egg open, and then you just use the shells to gently toss the egg yolk from shell to shell, jiggling out the egg white. I also like to get rid of the glazer as well, which is the stringy egg white bit. You don't have to do that, but I do, just to make sure that the mixture is a bit smoother. Now we're going to make 2 different types of mixture. We're going to make a meringue type mixture and the rest of the sponge mixture with the egg yolk. So egg yolks have oil in. Whenever we want to make a meringue and whisk egg whites up, we don't want to get any oil in that, otherwise it won't get nice and foamy enough. So we're going to do this second. Let's deal with our egg whites first. Here I'm going to add 20 grams of caster sugar. This bowl is, by the way, 40 grams, but I'm just going to add half of it. So 20 grams of caster sugar to our egg whites. And usually when you make meringues, you do it egg white first and then you add in the sugar, but I just like to do it all in one go, it works. So we're going to whisk this up until it's nice and foamy and really stiff like meringue. And that is it, literally just took a couple of minutes. We're going to deal with our egg yolks next. We're going to add in the rest of that sugar, so that's 20 grams of caster sugar. Also about a teaspoonful of vanilla extract. And we're also going to sift in 40 grams of self-raising flour. Sorry, that almost didn't record. I just put the sift in and the self-raising flour on there. That's 40 grams. And 20 grams of cocoa powder, and do not forget to sift this. It can go really lumpy otherwise. Give it a good sift. And finally a little pinch of salt. Now we're going to whisk this all together, give it a little mix together first because we don't want all of that powder to spray up everywhere. And mix it on slow. We're also going to add in 50 millilitres of milk. All done. That would have been a lot faster had I remembered to add the milk in from the very beginning. Now we're going to bring back our meringue mixture. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with a scoopful, and we're just going to use this to lightly loosen up our mixture so we can be a bit rougher here. Add one more scoopful. Now I'm going to dump all of this chocolate mixture into our meringue bowl. And from here on in we're going to have to be very gentle because we don't want to knock out any more air than we have to. And now we're going to use cutting and folding motions to combine the two. So very gently fold and cut. No smashing, no vigorous stirring. Cut and fold, cut and fold. When it gets to this point, when it's a little bit lumpy, I actually like to transfer to a balloon whisk, so let's get a little bit of this off. Don't get rid of this yet, we're going to need it. And we're going to use the whisk just to break up those pieces. So I like to scoop, still in a folding motion, bring it up and then lightly shake the whisk. And this helps break up some of those smaller lumps of egg whites in there without getting rid of all of our air bubbles. And that's your batter done. Let's bring back our cake tin. And we're going to pour our batter straight in. I'm going to give it a gentle spread around. I'm going to give it a few taps on the counter just to get rid of any bigger air bubbles in there. And now we're going to bake this just for 15 minutes. We have our lovely roll cake. Not quite done yet. What I'm going to do is carefully score around the sides, and this is going to make it easy for the cake to come out. Oh, ripped a bit there, don't worry. And now we're going to flip it over straight onto the rack, like that. Oh, and you can feel it's come out, but we're going to just leave it like this with the tray on top so that it doesn't dry out too much and the steam keeps it moist. We're going to leave it until it cools completely. Let's whip up some cream for the filling. Here I have 300 millilitres of double cream, and I'm going to add in 2 teaspoonfuls of caster sugar. Now let's whisk this up. Perfect, we've got some nice soft peaks here. And remember our drunken cherries we soaked overnight? I've actually strained them and I've collected the soaking spirits as well because we're going to use this to soak our cake. And of course we're going to use our cherries to fill it. Now we're going to get a nice long piece of baking paper. And our cake is nice and cool now. I got rid of the baking baking tin. We're going to get rid of the baking parchment. Oh, what a beautiful surface. Now I'm going to remove this, and I'm actually going to flip it so that it is shiny side down. So then we get rid of the baking rack. Here we are, and I'm going to put it this side round. Now I've got a big old serrated knife, and what I'm going to do is the end that's furthest away from us, I'm going to cut not straight down, but at an angle down like this, so we have a tapered edge. So I'm going to cut off about 1 centimetre. Just on the diagonal. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to eat that. And I'm going to do it on the other end as well. And now that I've tapered off both ends, I'm going to brush over our cherry brandy. That is about half. I'm just going to leave that there until the surface is no longer shiny, it's absorbed everything. And now we're going to dollop on our cream. We're going to focus on getting this side thicker and then making it thinner towards the end. So what I want is just the thinnest amount spread on here. This is going to help us seal the cake, but we don't want it squidging out. And then dolloping it on this side. And now finally we're going to dot our boozy cherries on, again concentrating more on this side. And now we're going to roll it up from this side to that side. So using the paper to help you, flip it over. There we go. Use your fingers, use anything around you to help you get that first initial roll. There we go. Over. I'm going to drag this back a bit. And I'm going to use the paper to help it round that last bit. Roll her up nice and tight. And now you're going to take the ends and like a Christmas cracker, you're going to tightly twist it. And you can see this is the bottom here. We're going to flip it over in a bit. Tightly twist. Flip it over, the seam is on the bottom. And we're going to put it in the fridge overnight with the seam on the bottom. To decorate, we're going to whip up 150 millilitres of double cream. Nice. I've also melted about 25 grams, 30 grams probably, of dark chocolate. I've just put it in a piping bag and put the end of the piping bag in some hot water. Not boiling, we don't want to seize the chocolate and we don't want to make it too hot. Just hot water. You can even touch it, and I just left it in there. And then when we're ready, we're going to snip off the end and drizzle it over the cake. And here I have a piping bag which I'm going to pop the cream in. Now I've got a long plate here, and we're going to unravel, our cake. Now if we were going to present this like at a professional patisserie, what I would do is I would trim the ends off and then we'd have perfect ends. But we know, we're at home, feeling a bit lazy, don't want to waste the ends. Not that I would waste the ends, I would eat them, but lazy, let's not do that. When we cut it anyway, it's going to have a really nice cross section. So we've got our cream, we're just going to pipe swirls on top. And remember our chocolate, we're going to drizzle that over. Now is actually time to transfer the cake. So we've got our clean ends here. Well, not clean, they're creamy, but they're not chocolatey either. And we're going to transfer this onto our plate, mess-free, relatively. Let's get rid of that. And now finally, we're going to dot some cherries on top. Now let's take a slice. It's easiest to do so with a serrated knife. Perfect. That looks absolutely wonderful. I'm really pleased with the way I swirled the chocolate on. For the sake of the thumbnail, this is the fresh slice. I realised just as I was smashing into the other slice that, I'm actually ruining my thumbnail slice. I'm going to put this down, and here's my mushed up slice. Anyway, I'm going to take another bite. Cheers! The sponge is so light, like a cloud. And it's not soggy at all. We put quite a bit of that cherry brandy on top when we brush the sponge rather with it. And it's not wet, it's just perfectly moist. Then we've got the fresh cool cream and the juicy cherries. Heavenly. So there you go, Black Forest roll cake. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's recipe video, and I hope you'll join me next Wednesday for my next one. Get the full written recipe on my blog tashcakes.com, follow me on Instagram on tashcakes.taste, and find me on TikTok too. I'm tashcakes there too, but my handle is food in slow motion. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to see more. Give this video a like if you'd like to help other people find it. Comment down below if you'd like me to make anything in particular, and I will see you all next time. Be good, be nice, and have a good week. Ooh, don't forget the cherry.